All right, welcome back, dear viewers. I got a video for you. Hopefully, it'll be a quick one. Basically, a viewer had a question about which I prefer, Shadowdark or Lamentations of the Flame Princess. So I wanted to make a video out of it. Um, but before we get into that, this is kind of what I do. I play games, I record myself playing those games, and I talk about those games. I got nothing against the flip through review, but I don't find you get a whole lot out of those. I think a conversation, a deep dive into the rules is much more helpful. This hobby can get expensive, and we want to allocate our funds to the proper places and make informed decisions. So if that's something you like, please hit like and subscribe, bell icon, yada yada yada. Yeah, and we'll have some great conversations about games. So let's get started here. So, Lamentations of the Flame Princess versus Shadowdark. Dun dun dun. There's a lot of similarities, and I think it's one of the reasons why I like Shadowdark so much. Um, it's the tone. We'll get into it, but there are some significant differences that I'm going to highlight, and that will hopefully inform your decision in respect to which game might better suit your needs. Um, so as far as task resolution and the rules, Shadowdark is simple. I think Lamentations of the Flame Princess is pretty simple too, but you'll see that like Shadowdark is just everything is built around a target number, an ascending target number for as far as difficulty is concerned, and you just roll a d20, the appropriate attribute, and any potential miscellaneous modifiers, and if you beat that target number, ta-da, you succeed. Um, Whereas Lamentations of the Flame Princess has, like any BX line of retro clones, there's a series of subsystems. So like combat has an ascending AC, the common adventuring skills like climbing, like sneaking, like opening doors, or disarming a trap uses a D6 system. Chases, it's a D20 plus 10% of your movement rate, and whoever's got the higher number wins. Wrestling is like opposed d20 rolls. There's a really cool, frankly I like it, the morale loyalty system determination is great. But with Shadowdark it's all the d20, so real simple to use as far as for Shadowdark is concerned, because you just have to remember the d20, right? Both have magic systems that include mishap tables, but with Lamentations you have a choice. You can go with straight Vancian, where your magic users are memorizing spells and then they forget them once they're cast, or you have this alternative system through the Eldritch Cock Vaginas Are Magic supplements, where mishaps can occur. In Shadowdark, that's the only thing. There's mishaps, and it can affect clerical magic as well, where they have to go through like an atonement. Not so in Lamentations. Clerical magic is just straight standard BX clerical magic. Um, the classes are different. Like I've talked about this in videos before, so I encourage you to go check out my LOTFP series. But the classes in Lamentations are very centered around niche protection, and it's in the BX line, so race as class is also a factor. Whereas Shadowdark, it's more like advanced D&D, where class and race are separate, so you can kind of mix and match and sort of build your own conception of a fighter, whether they're an orc, a halfling, or I'm sorry, a half orc, halfling, human, elf, blah blah blah. So, and Shadowdark has random level advancements. So like every other level, you'll be rolling on a chart to see what skills increase. Whereas LOTFP, it's pretty static, but you know what you're going to be doing. Fighters fight. Specialists do the skills. Magic users are hurling dark energy. Clerics are using holy power to buff the party, that sort of thing. So those are some of the major differences. Campaign tools is also very different, and I'm actually kind of torn. So LOTFP gives you hirelings and retainers, sailing rules, investment and domain management, though that's really general. Um, there are monster creation rules, but they're in a separate book. There's no bestiary, not really. You have to buy another book. The bestiaries exist in other books, and they're really more particular to the adventure or setting that the book is presenting to you. There are, I should probably compare that now to Shadowdark. Shadowdark, you have a bestiary. It's in there. There's monster creation rules, all in the same book. There's magic item creation rules, all in that same book. You don't get that with LOTFP. In Shadowdark, you got these great tables for random dungeons, towns, settlements, hex generation. Really don't get that with LOTFP unless it's in a particular module. I think Shadowdark is great for no prep play, whereas LOTFP I think could be, but you don't have something like the appendices of the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or what Shadowdark has. But there are game books out there that have stuff for you to do that. Like I just ran A Red and Pleasant Land by Zach S. It's got stuff and I was doing a lot of no prep, just going off the fly, just dice dropping, creating stuff. So it's out there, but it's not in the main rule book, whereas it is in Shadowdark. And I kind of like that Shadowdark is giving me that stuff. There is an implied setting with Shadowdark, but it's really vague, and it's so that kind of leaves it up to you, the game master, to have some creative fun with it. But you get gods, and they're aligned, chaos, neutral, and lawful, and LOTFP, the implied setting is 17th century Europe. But there are modules out there that take you to other places. There's one for Africa. I think it's World of the Lost. The stuff by Zach S. is just some weird other world. Then there's places like Fecal Lands or Carcosa. So there's a lot of variety out there with LOTFP. But the implied setting for LOTFP is the 17th century. And I didn't put it on here, but it just dawned on me. You get gun rules, and that's part of the implied setting. So you have gunpowder will be part of your campaign if you want it. You don't get that with Shadowdark. It is very much a classic sort of D&D system and setting. The tone. There's some similarities here. A buddy of mine, Gary, likes to say that Shadowdark understands that everyone is afraid of the dark. And I think Shadowdark and Lamentations get it right when it comes to dungeon crawling. It should not be this goofy fun. Everyone's just having a good old time going into the dungeon. No, it's a scary business, and you should take it seriously. Shadowdark does that wonderfully with the torch mechanic. You have 1 hour of real time before the torch goes out. LOTFP doesn't have anything like that, but the fact that a lot of its modules are really horror modules masquerading as D&D adds a whole nother element to the fear, and that's where the difference begins. Shadowdark is sword and sorcery. LOTFP is really horror and weird fantasy, and you just have to be interested in that. Like, if that's just not something you like, stick with Shadowdark. Though I think you could use a module from Lamentations and run it with Shadowdark rules if you really wanted to. Carousing is intrinsic to Shadowdark, not so much with Lamentations. You can tweak Shadowdark to be more pulpy, not so much with Lamentations. I mean, I like to use Mudcore. It's hard. It will be hard if you are playing rules as written and you're not making it easier for the players. Like, if the fire goes down or the magic user does something crazy, like cast summon, things can go sideways real quick. There are death saves in Shadowdark, kinda. You have a few rounds to be stabilized by a friend, and each round you roll a d20, and if you roll a 20, a natural 20, you get up with 1 hit point, but otherwise you're dying, right? Lamentations, there's no death saves. At -4, you're instantly dead. At -2 or better, you could be healed and recover. At -3, it's got this rule that really has no mechanical purpose. -3, you roll a d10, and that's how many rounds you survive and bleed out in agonizing pain, and no one can help you. It's just a rule to underscore the fact that this is a deadly game, and it's horrifying. You're gonna be, holding onto your gut, trying to put your innards back in as you just die. And as I said earlier, Shadowdark is like classic D&D, but with that emphasis of like danger and fear of the dark. Lamentations got blood, gore, sexual content. If that's not your thing, then don't buy those. Don't buy the modules, or check out some of the videos that I make of those modules to see if it fits. Your tastes, because not all of them are like that. Some of them are a little more serious. But Shadowdark is like more classic D&D. And I wanted to highlight some images to kind of talk about the tone a little bit. So we have I know I've used this image before because I really like it. It's the classic thief going down the rope to see if he can get the treasure chest. I mean, that's classic dungeon crawling right there. And it's the artwork with the black and white really emphasizes the concept of like you're in this dark place. It's dangerous. But on the flip side, and I couldn't find a good picture, so I just took this. But this is my favorite picture in the core rulebook. It is how the Flame Princess lost her leg and a few fingers. She's getting eaten by an ooze, and there's this lantern that's holding back the darkness, and she's like in some cavern screaming in horror and pain. To me, that's dungeon crawling. That's the dangers of dungeon crawling. That's horror. Like I have like a visceral reaction whenever I see that image. I just love it so much. So you have on the one hand dark, dangerous, but kind of pulpy and fun, and then just horror. So again, those are some of the differences to think about in terms of what you want to play. Some final thoughts. So I think Shadowdark is quick and easy to pick up. Like you could teach someone how to play a tabletop RPG in one session of Shadowdark. It'll take you 5 minutes to make a character, and you're playing. There's no power fantasy, so like you have to think. You have to think through these obstacles and dangers that you're facing. And that's awesome. And that's what I like. And Lamentations is very similar in that regard. However, Lamentations is a hobby unto itself. Like the fans really are fans, and they collect the books, and that's what I've been doing. The books, I think the company treats the RPG as almost like a medium of expression, like an art form, and that's kind of what you get from these books. A lot of people like to disregard Lamentations as some sort of edgelord, tripe, and it's not. There's penis monsters every now and again, right? There's like some edgy stuff in there, but at the end of the day, it's really expressive, and it's smart, and it's taking itself seriously, and it's daring you to take what they're doing seriously. And I really like that. It's not treating me like some kid. It's like, this is adult stuff. Lamentations being a retro clone, though, you can use it without the product line. You could use it for Keep on the Borderlands or Temple of Elemental Evil. I'm doing that right now with Temple of Elemental Evil. It's just going to change the tone of that game, and your players are going to have to change the way they play, because they will be punished if they try to play like a standard D&D game. Monsters are going to be a lot harder, and not everyone's just going to be able to sword fight their way out of everything. So yeah. And like I said earlier, you could use Lamentations modules with Shadowdark, which would kind of change the tone a bit with them. But you would be taking Shadowdark into a realm of horror and more adult themes, right? One of the things, though, I need to, in all fairness, like Shadowdark is still new, so there's not a lot of modules that I've seen that have like piqued my interest, right? Other than the Shucked Oyster, which I think everyone should pick up. If you're watching this now, the Kickstarter's still going. If you're watching after the Kickstarter's end, go to drive-through and pick it up because it's a really cool module. Black Lodge Games, they did a great job. Anyway, but a lot of the modules I have seen seem to be in that one-page dungeon design style, or just 5-room dungeon style. A lot of the dungeons I got in the Kickstarter are like on like these little index card type or one-page things, and they're cool, but you know, where Lamentations modules are like these really developed things that are like experiences that are just going to make your players go whoa, or ugh, I can't believe I just did this, you know. So but Shadowdark is still new, so who knows what's coming down the pike. So but at the end of the day, with luck and wit, you will earn gold in Shadowdark, and only by the grace of God will you survive and succeed in Lamentations of the Flame Princess. That's kind of where I'm at. So $64,000 question. If I were to start a campaign that I wanted to take very seriously, that would be long term, it's going to be Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Like I said, Shadowdark, both systems take what they're doing very seriously, hence like this sort of realism that's in there. But I've said this before, I'm a big fan of the strange and unusual, and Lamentations of the Flame Princess is strange and unusual. So yeah, Lamentations of the Flame Princess wins out for me, but Shadowdark is still a great game, and I'm enjoying playing it. So anyway, dear viewers, thanks for watching this video. Hit like and subscribe if you made it through. Even if you didn't make it through, I hope you hit like and subscribe. I got more coming. Yeah, so stay tuned. Take it easy.